All right, Shalom. First off, and give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Kakadash. Want to give double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. And a sincere Shalom to all the Akim out here that's doing and pushing this work in truth and in sincerity. Okay, want to go on this video that fathers married their daughters off, okay, according to the biblical laws. Okay, and I'm gonna go into the scripture in Ecclesiastes 7:23, and it says, "Hast thou children? Instruct them and bow down their neck from their youth." Okay, and that, that's a weighty scripture, as it is, because in this day and age, okay, people will have rebellious children. Okay, and the scriptures talk about what you're supposed to do if your son is rebellious, okay, and doesn't listen to you. Right? Now, what people of today's day and age go out, and bring it to the elders that their son is a rebellious and a glutton and everything, no. Okay, because a lot of these people are emotional, and as much as a lot of these people want to try to say that it's about following the laws and everything like that, they conveniently miss the point that we can't follow the laws in the scriptures 100%, okay, right now, okay. But we are supposed to instruct the children, okay, and bow down their neck, put them in order, okay, from their youth, right? Then it says, "Has thou children, or has thou daughters? Have a care of their body," right? "And so not thyself cheerful toward them. Marry thy daughter, and so shalt thou have performed a weighty matter, but give her to a man of understanding." Okay? So, fathers, are responsible for their daughters. Okay? Your daughters didn't have high body counts. Okay, you actually cared about, who your daughter married, who your daughters married, who they were with. Okay, your daughter wasn't able to just go out and just, have free will. Women weren't able to just have free will to just go and, pick a partner. And as you see, women don't really know how to pick men. Okay? They don't know how to choose men. Okay? Especially not a man of understanding. But, you got this group, IUIC, but, picked them out particular because I've had seen videos of them, parading the men around, okay, on stage, asking the women, "Hey, which one of you women want to be with this guy?" Right? He's a captain of 1,000. Okay? And the women, they'll look at this guy because of, hypergamy, the status of this guy, and they'll think, "Oh, shoot, I can get with this man. He's a captain of 1,000. He can climb up the ranks, and this group, says only one man, one wife. Shoot, why not? I can get taken care of by this man." Okay? And the men that are, making these connections, you're not their father. Okay? The father is supposed to give that daughter away in marriage. You know? And and when you go into these weddings, right, of today's, these modern weddings, you know, they'll ask when the man walks up, you know, the daughter or the woman that's the bride to be, okay, they walk her to the so-called altar, right? And they ask, who is this man that gives this daughter away? That daughter Ben gave herself away, okay? Well, and then they'll say, well, this is the father that gives it away, or this is the brother, you know, the father figure. Okay, you have father figures back then, okay? You know, because the father might have passed away or something like that, you know. But the case of, you know, the father giving a daughter away in today's age, you know, is this man that this father is giving his daughter away to, he probably didn't even approve of the marriage. He don't even know it, you know, the man. Okay, and then he walking away with the short end of the stick because he's not getting paid for it. Okay? That father is supposed to get paid for marrying his daughter away. Now, the Bible in Exodus 22:16, it says, and if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, or betrothed, however you want to say it, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. Okay? And they don't, you know, talk about, oh, you giving the money towards the woman, or, you know, the woman, you got to do these things for the woman, you know, to try to make this woman your queen, like how a lot of these simps do nowadays, you know. But let's go into this word endow. Okay, let's see what it says. It says mahar in the Hebrew, right? That's one thing that a lot of these other groups do. They don't go into, you know, the Hebrew, reading the words, just trying to get this Strong's. Okay. Mahar. Okay. It says to obtain or acquire by paying purchase price, give a dowry, to obtain an exchange. Okay? It says to bargain for a wife, to wed, to endow. Okay? So there was, you know, you could negotiate that price, okay, of what, you know, to the father, of what, you know, the circumstances may be. And there would be a whole ceremony with, you know, the father giving away the daughter to the man that's going to be the husband. There would be a whole ceremony, you know, of, you know, before they come together, right, and consummate the marriage. Okay, the woman would, you know, have to, you know, bleed into the blanket, you know, which would be a white blanket. Okay, which was so that she's a virgin, you know, untampered with. Okay, she hasn't been touched. Okay, so that man can't say, you know, that this woman that this man then gave to be that this father then gave to be a husband, a wife. Okay, that she was, you know, not, that she was, you know, tempered, you know, she was damaged goods. Okay, and that's a whole nother subject in itself, because, you know, men back in the day, they did not want to deal with women that were not virgins. Okay? You tell that to people nowadays about, a woman is supposed to be a virgin, and if a woman, isn't a virgin, you are a harlot by definition. People get emotional. Okay? Even with dealing with this subject. Okay? A father giving away a daughter. People get emotional. Okay? And the circumstances that evolve around it. Okay? Now, we so far removed from this ancient custom. Okay? But the principle is still supposed to be there. Okay? The men, it's one of the reasons why we poor. Okay? Because you have a daughter, and it ain't no money being returned from off your investment. Okay? You had this beautiful daughter, and all these men want to get at her. You know that these niggas is willing to pay for women. Heck, a lot of these niggas out here fucking paying for fucking OnlyFans, man. For harlots. You got women that are actually selling their virginity. Okay? And they making money off of it, but the father ain't getting not a dime of that. Okay? The father probably getting disowned and put to shame. Which it is a shame if your daughter out there just doing whatever she wants to. Okay? But it says, if her father, Exodus 22:17, if her father utterly refused to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. Okay? The man still must pay money equivalent to the dowry of virgins. Okay? So, you couldn't just go out there and just, put your pipe or whatever you got, your broomstick, hanger, whatever you got, into any woman. Okay? It didn't just work like that. They were, you had to pay up. Okay? If that was your woman. Okay? Now, I asked ChatGPT, okay, how much would 50 shekels of silver from biblical times be today? Okay? It says the value of 50 shekels of silver in biblical times, depending on which shekel you're using and how you calculate modern value, there are two common ways to estimate it: by silver weight and by economic labor value. Okay? And it says value by silver weight, most common method. Okay? The biblical shekel, or sanctuary shekel, okay, is 11.3 grams of silver. 50 shekels equals 56 grams of silver. That's about 18.2 troy ounces. Okay? Modern day silver price approximate. Silver today fluctuates, but roughly $23 to $28 per troy ounce. Okay? It says estimated value today would be about $420, $510. Okay? By pure metal value. Okay? 50 shekels equals $450 US dollars, rough average. Right? Value by economic labor value, historical context. It says in the Bible, 50 shekels was a very serious amount of money. Not pocket change. Okay? Exodus 21:32 talks about 30 shekels. Okay? It equals the price of a slave. Deuteronomy 22 and 29, right, says 50 shekels, a bride price, a fine, a life-altering amount. A wage comparison, a laborer earned about 1 shekel per month or less. 50 shekels equals about 4 to 5 years of wages. If converted to modern income, using a modest income of $35,000 to $45,000 a year, economic equivalent $140,000 to $225,000. Okay, so it says this pretty much was made to be a have a huge financial impact on a man. Okay, why? Okay, for 50 shekels of silver, this is a fine. Okay, this is a penalty. Okay, amount. Okay, so it says, how much would the father get in biblical times if a man just took his daughter that he wasn't betrothed to? In biblical times, or biblical law, if a man took or had sexual relations with a virgin who was not betrothed, the payment to her father is stated explicitly. Okay? Deuteronomy 22 and 28 through 29. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed or betrothed, and lay hold on her and lie with her, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his life, all his days. Okay? The amount paid, 50 shekels of silver, paid directly to the father. Okay? What does 50 shekels mean then? The economic reality, roughly 4 to 5 years of a man's wages. A life-altering sum, not symbolic, intended to compensate the family for loss of bride price, punish the man financially, protect the woman from abandonment. Okay, so a man could not just pop this woman, okay, have sex with this woman, and just, ditch her to the curb. Okay? Hit it, quit it, see the next nigga with it. Okay? If this woman was a virgin, you couldn't just do that. Okay? So, it says, why did the father receive it? In ancient Israel, the father was the legal household authority. The father, you go into it, if that woman was living under that man's roof, she couldn't pray. Okay? If the father could disannul a prayer, okay? You get the husband can disannul the prayer of his wife. Now, you tell a woman that I'm going to disannul your prayer, your prayer don't mean shit, right? No, I ain't with all that today. These women ain't trying to hear all that. Okay? Heck, in these other groups, they might take you to counsel. Hey brother, I heard you disannulled your woman's prayer. You being too rough on your woman. Man, that stuff did not go on in ancient history. Okay, and that's not how the Lord wanted it to be. Okay? The marriage counsels people, meddling into another person's affairs. Okay? Bringing you to counsel because, you said something to your woman that another man don't agree with. Okay? Nowadays, you got people that disagree with the age difference between a man and a woman. If a man is, 21 years old, and if the woman is, it don't matter man or woman, but typical, right? If a woman is, let's just say 20 years old, the man is, 34 or 36, they have a problem with that. Heck, I've even heard people say, let a 36-year-old man bring a 20-year-old woman around me. We fighting. You know? That's the mindset of a lot of these people out here. You know, they're emotional and they don't believe in what the scriptures say. Okay? And I can't wait till the Lord, you know, put a lot of these niggas to death, a lot of these women to death, you know, showing that he is the power. He is God. Okay? Yahweh is his name. Okay? And Yahweh Shai is his son's name. Okay? So the Lord is going to put an end to all that confusion. Okay? And the people being emotional. Okay? His ways are higher than your ways. Okay? Even when it comes down to the age of the marriageable age of a woman. A lot of people disagree with that. Okay? When the scriptures talk about you perform the weighty matter. A lot of these marriages in the Bible were prearranged marriages. Okay? Not free will. Your daughter going out. What do you know, bring home a man, a suitable man. You know, your father just bringing home any guy. What do you think about this woman? No, I don't approve. That did not happen, man. Okay? A lot of women didn't have say-so in what the man that they was going to marry. They didn't have no say-so in who they were marrying. Okay? So, the father was the legal household authority, and the mother really didn't have no say-so either. The mother of that woman. Because it's the father's household. Okay? Now, the woman can have a child and just dip off. Right? Take half of the man's money. Right? Take the children. And live off the back of this man. You know, while sleeping and, you know, doing whatever they doing with the next nigga. This shit is totally out of order, man. You know, and excuse my language, but hey, if you lasted this long in the video, then typically you probably got ears to hear. Okay? So a cuss word shouldn't really affect you if we bringing out a topic like this. Okay? A lot of people will hear this, they, you know, listen to it for a couple minutes and, you know, click off. And hey, if you click off, then oh well, we don't care about all that. Okay? But it says in ancient Israel, he bore economic responsibility, social standing of the family. They want to reap all the benefits of the man. Okay? A lot of these people out here want to reap all the benefits of being with a man. Okay? It says the act damaged the daughter's marriage prospects, right? Because this father could be negotiating with, you know, with another family, because it will be a business arrangement. Okay? He could be negotiating with the family, you know, different families, you know, potential suitors, okay? To increase his family's status. Okay? It says the household's honor and future security. So, you know, marrying off a daughter to a man of understanding, you know, brings more honor to you and more future security for your household. Okay? You didn't just let your daughter go out here and go get with a YN. Okay? Or whoever, whatever, you know, OG or whoever, man. Because, you know, OGs, they like them young. Okay? Or the unks, you know, like what they would call my generation, the unks. You know, you just let your daughter just, you know, go out there and just be with anybody. Okay? You wanted to protect your family's name, your legacy. Okay? It says that's about $140,000 to $225,000 Jake don't just got that money laying around, okay? And 4 to 5 years of income, is a lot, okay? That Jake just ain't trying to, pay that penalty, okay? It says important clarification, often misunderstood. This law does not apply to rape involving force, okay? Because if a woman was betrothed and a man just went and had sex with her, then that man would get put to death, right? It says that case is addressed separately, okay? That's Deuteronomy 22, 25 through 27, and carried the death penalty for the attacker. So this man couldn't just, you already got the arrangement set up, you waiting for the date for your woman, for the daughter, to get married, and then a man just comes and rapes her because, hey, it could have been a family that may have wanted to be with her. Okay? Who knows? I'm just throwing a scenario out there. Okay? You as the father set the date in stone. Around this time, this is when, it's just going to happen. We're going to make this happen around this time. My daughter's going to be a virgin. You make sure you have the money right. And then the man just comes and, he sleeps with your daughter. Sleep with that man's daughter, that father's daughter. That man would get put to death. Okay? Because that's a wicked act. Okay? It says Deuteronomy 22 through 28 and 29. It says deals with seduction, violation without betrothal, not violent assault. Okay? It says the key takeaway is the father would receive 50 shekels of silver, a massive financial penalty meant to enforce accountability, protection, and lifelong responsibility, not to trivialize the offense. Okay, so this is not a light matter that was taken, or done. Okay, so the father would get compensated. That man, okay, has to, pay up. Okay, you can't get rid of the woman. The woman is protected. Okay, and that man you're accountable now. Okay, if this woman was not married, okay, or promised to be married, okay, there's a penalty. You ain't just going and marrying getting with a woman, man. Okay, nowadays it's different. It's a different standard now. Okay, fathers ain't giving away their daughters. These women, they're giving away themselves, man. Okay, it says the short answer. Oh, my bad. How much did fathers get paid for their daughters normally outside of the law? Right? It says there was no single fixed price, but fathers normally were paid. It says fathers were normally paid a bride price that was much lower than the 50 shekel penalty, unless the groom was wealthy. Okay? And just because, a man was wealthy, don't mean that he was, a good suitor. Okay? That man could have been a fool. Right? The scriptures talk about, a man of understanding. Okay? It says, what was the normal payment called, right? The bride price paid by the groom or his family, right? Because the father or the man, right, that was going to be the husband, probably was the son of another father. Okay? So it wasn't, just a daughter, or a daughter and another man. It was another father, giving away his son probably. Okay? For another, father giving away his daughter. Okay? So it would be prearranged. Okay? So it would probably be a family, or it could have been a man saying, you know what, hey, I just got a couple of dollars, man. I wanna marry this woman, to be my woman. Okay? It says, given to the father or household, right? This is the bride price we're talking about. Functioned as proof of seriousness. Yeah, I'm serious about being with your daughter, right? Compensation for losing a working member of the household. Financial security tied to the marriage. Okay, typical amounts, right? Average families, 10 to 20 shekels of silver, right? Roughly 1 to 2 years of wages. Poor families, sometimes very small sums, or labor instead of silver, right? Jacob worked 14 years for Rachel, right? He also had Leah as well. Wealth or high status families could be 30 shekels or more, plus gifts, livestock, garments, servants. Okay, so this was secure. This was a major business deal. The father was securing the family's future, especially if you had a beautiful daughter. Okay, who would love the glory of a man is the woman, right? It's supposed to be the woman. Woman nowadays, ain't no glory in being with some of these women. This woman's supposed to be a trophy wife, but if you're talking about showcasing, the woman off, that man down the street could have had her on his trophy case just because he got pretty eyes. Another nigga could have, had her on the trophy case today because he, bought weed over. Another nigga could, because he had money, or another nigga, because he a YN, or, whatever. No hatred to the YNs if you're a YN, But these women, they're not trophy wives. Okay? It's supposed to be, you get that woman, That's a beautiful woman. And that beauty was supposed to really be for that man. His eyes only to see. Nowadays, these women, they got all this, they give you hella blowback, as far as, talking back and, not submissive, not feminine, showing off their bodies and stuff like that. They're just not wives. They freaking hoes. They harlots. And here you got people out here that are, which is another conversation, they trying to make it seem like these harlots worth something. When the scriptures talk about a harlot shall be counted as spittle. Okay? If you spit on the ground, that shit ain't worth nothing. Okay? So, weight of high status families, or wealthy or high status families, could be paying, more than 30 shekels. Okay? Gifts, livestock, garments, servants. Right? We read that scripture. Okay, there was a recognized standard range, okay, of how much, it could have been. But if you went outside, if a man went outside that, that agreement, it wasn't no agreement, then, there was a penalty for that. Okay? And that penalty was very costly. Right? So, it says, just a little bit more, touching on that 50 shekels. Why 50 shekels was different right? That was the maximum penalty tier, right? 2 to 5 times higher than the normal bride price, meant to punish wrongdoing, remove bargaining power from the man, guarantee lifelong responsibility. And let's say a man didn't do that, that would be a penalty with that too. Okay? It says, think of it like normal bride price equals a negotiated contract. 50 shekels equals a court-imposed fine, forced obligation. Okay? So, it says the moderate comparison, right? A poor family would probably have about 5 to 10 shekels. That would be about a half to 1 year income. Okay? Average family, 10 to 20 shekels, 1 to 2 years income. Wealthy family, 20 to 30 shekels, 2 to 3 years income. Then it says penalty, right? It's Deuteronomy 22, you know, is a great millstone we go into that a lot of camps don't want to deal with. It will be 50 shekels, which is 4 to 5 years income. Okay? And that's just an estimate, okay? So I asked, how much would that money be in today's terms, right? I'll just get to the point, okay? It says 10 shekels equals 1 year's wages, $35,000 to $50,000. Okay, 20 equals 2 years' wages, $70,000 to $100,000. Okay, it says this reflects lost household labor, social standing, marriage security, serious commitment by the groom. Okay, so this was pretty decent amount of money. Okay, was it 35 to 50,000 compared to 225,000? If you broke that, okay. If there was no agreement, it says normally a father received what would feel like today like tens of thousands of dollars, not pocket change. Okay, the 50 shekel law was intentionally far above normal, closer to a 6-figure penalty in today's terms. Okay, so men couldn't just do whatever they wanted to back then when it comes down to women. Okay, just popping, doing whatever, you secured the financial status of the father, his household. Okay, women, were protected. They was, the family was secure. Okay, and that's pretty much it, man. Lord willing, this was edifying. Want to say shalom till next time.